the Zoom in case I need to depart
Okay.
a little before the end of things.
Okay, sure.
So, so everybody else is hiding. I don't know if you want to turn your cameras on. I always like to see people's faces, but anyway, so yes, so I'm the Director of Research and Patient Engagement for the FSHD Society, and we were founded more than 30 years ago by two patients who became very impatient with the fact that there was really no research going on FSHD, not even by the major, like the Muscular Dystrophy Association in the United States. There were so muscular dystrophies are an umbrella term covering, 40 plus rare genetic muscle diseases, and FSHD. What we've learned over the years, it was once considered ultra rare, and we now realize it's actually one of the most common muscular dystrophies, affecting about 1 in 8,000 people, we think, which, doesn't sound like a lot until you think, any small town, there'll be somebody with FSHD. In New York City, there's probably someone in every other city block who's affected. And if you think of it that way,
Wow.
it's actually much more prevalent than we realize. And one reason we don't realize how prevalent it is that, it's a slow moving condition. It's easy to hide it. I think many of you've experienced this in the earlier course of a disease. You can dress so people don't see you have a scapular winging, or there are a lot of ways you compensate for the loss of muscle strength over time. So, and generally people don't walk around saying, hey, I have this condition, right? So it's what I call a condition that's sometimes hiding in plain sight. And that's a challenge because it means it makes it hard to find other people who share that experience. Like, you can benefit from each other's knowledge. You don't have clout as an advocacy or as a group to push for more research, more resources, and so on. So the society is very much about building those connections so that our voices are heard, so that we can support each other as a community, and hopefully impact the course of what's being done for people with FSHD wherever they are. And so the South African group, I'm so grateful to Crystal when she connected with me way back and we started talking. I said, oh, yeah, South Africa. And we have a few other people from time to time. Over the years, families have reached out to me and saying, is there anything going on here? Is there a support group? And I really was trying so hard to get people to connect. But what it really takes is a few individuals in each place to just simply, raise their hand and say, okay, I'll help organize. I mean, it's as simple as saying on such and such a date, let's all get together. That's really how this started. And with this incredible technology we have with Zoom, I think it makes it so much easier for people to gather, have conversations, invite guests from anywhere in the world. And today we have someone, Peter, whom I've just met, who's right there in South Africa with you. So, hooray, yes, thank you so much. Thank you for stepping up. Thank you all for being here. We have, I don't know, I may have to jump off before the end of the hour. We've had some really exciting news this week, or last week, from Fulcrum Therapeutics. So
Oh,
for
wow.
those of you who haven't been diligently following every scrap of news about FSHD research and drug development, Fulcrum is a company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We started working with them before they were even formed, and they were looking around for a disease or condition that they felt they could have an impact on. And we said FSHD would be, such a condition, and we have an active patient community. We have all the things in place to support the development of a clinical trial. And so they just announced last week that their compound, which is the first drug that's gone out into clinical trials that is designed to stop the disease process directly. It attacks the genetic mechanism of FSHD.
Wow.
And it has just announced it's going into a phase 3 trial. So that's the large phase pivotal trial that, if it goes well, will result in the Food and Drug Administration approval of the drug, which often leads the way to other countries, making the drug available. So of course, we don't know yet what the outcome will be, but the fact that they've gotten this far, the phase 2 trial data were really solid and enabled them to design this pivotal trial, is all incredibly good news. So they are going to start recruiting volunteers. The trial is designed for 230 individuals. It's double-blind, double placebo-controlled. So it means half of this group will be randomly assigned to get the drug, which is a small pill taken twice a day, very safe from all the data that's been around on it. And the other half will get a placebo. And they will be, and nobody knows who got what, so it's double-blinded. And they will be assessed over a 48-week period. And
Wow.
then we'll see if the drug made a difference in the progression of the condition. They're particularly focused on upper body, so which was there's a method of measuring your range of motion, which connects to your muscle strength in your upper body. And on the phase 2 trial, that one was actually one that showed a difference between the group taking the drug and the group that did not. So they want to now, repeat that with a larger population. So, we're all, this is amazing that we've gotten this far from having nothing at all 5 years ago to having something like this. For countries outside of the US, I think it's really important to start talking to your, whatever agency it is in your country that controls access to medications. You might have your equivalent of the FDA. You might have a national health service that decides whether to cover or provide certain drugs to the public, and who pays for it, all those sorts of things. It's really important to make sure they're aware of FSHD and make sure that there's a significant burden to individuals and families when you have this condition. That's something we can talk about another time, but that's an area that we've become very active in different countries, and through the World FSHD Alliance, which like your MD association there in South Africa is a member of that and participating in that. So anyway, I'll shut up for now. I just wanted to share the hot news.
That's incredible.
Thank you, June. Really appreciate that. Yeah, that gives us a good background and such exciting news about the Fulcrum. Oh, that is excellent, and we'll keep updated with that. So thank you. And June, do you want to record this this session for us? If possible, that'll be great. Sorry,
you need to give me back, make me a co-host. I guess I don't know. Or you can do it yourself. You can just hit the record button.
Oh, okay, I can do that. Yes.
And tell it to record to the cloud, not to your computer.
Recording in progress.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you. So June, how I thought I'd do it tonight, and for all of those, I thought it would probably be good to just ask Peter a few questions, and then sort of like in an interviewing process, and he can answer the questions, and then share more after, and people can ask questions, but just sort of take it like that, if that's okay. So Peter, can you just introduce yourself, and then also share with us a little bit about how you got to hear about or find out that you had FSHD.
Hi everybody, I'm Peter Blackburn, live in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with FSHD. my journey in hindsight is very different to what I thought it was when I was growing up. So growing up, I had winging of the scapula. I saw occupational therapists since I was very young because I had poor posture. I've got scoliosis of the spine, and when I was growing up, I just thought that was sort of normal sort of things until I got a bit older and I was in my mid-20s and I had a lot of pain around my shoulders. I had a lot of instability in my shoulders, and I went to my local GP and I asked my GP sort of what was going on. And that started a lengthy process of about 3 years of seeing various specialists, trying to figure out what was going on. I saw numerous amounts of neurologists and even rheumatologists as well, because there was a point that I was misdiagnosed with a form of arthritis. So it took a long time for me to figure out exactly what was going on with me, and yeah, so it wasn't until I came back to Cape Town and I was no longer able to perform my job that I saw a neurologist in Cape Town by the name of Dr. Andrew Frost, and he had a colleague who was studying FSHD at Tygerberg Hospital here in Cape Town, and within 5 minutes he was like, "I think you've got FSHD," and that started a new process of trying to confirm his diagnosis, which took a while. I did 2 separate genetic tests. One was sent to the United States, the other one was sent to the United Kingdom. Both of them came back with a partial. I have part of the genetic sequence for FSHD, but I don't have the full genetic sequence. I've got a mutation within that sequence, so I don't have FSHD type 1 or type 2. But my genetic counselor explained to me that they are testing and trying to figure out the sequence for FSHD type 3 and type 4, and they do believe I fall into that bracket. So then going on a few years, I was introduced to an orthopedic surgeon by the name of Professor Stephen Roche. And due to the instability in my shoulder, I have a lot of calcific tendonitis due to my tendon tearing and not forming scar tissue. So I went under to have an operation to clear out my right shoulder, to try to reduce the acute pain that I had. And during that procedure, we did a muscle biopsy on the affected muscle in my scapula, and that was then confirmed that I do have muscular dystrophy. So that was the very first time where it was 100%, you've got muscular dystrophy. It's most likely a form of FSHD due to the scapular winging, the weakness in the shoulders, the loss of muscle mass, and yeah, so that then was sort of how I came to know exactly that I've got FSHD, and
Wow.
yeah.
Sure, that's also, it's been many. And so now the genetic counselor that you were seeing, how did that come about, or how, are there such things? So that there was the speciality that she had was basically just genetic counseling. So did she do the genetic tests on you and then send those off to the US and to the UK?
Yeah.
Was it her that did that?
Yes, correct. She was the one that did the genetic test on me. They were both. One was blood test, if I'm not mistaken, and the other one was a mouth swab. So I think the blood was sent to the United Kingdom. I might be mistaken. They might both have had a mouth swab as well. And then the second one was sent to the United States to do that. Yeah, and since then, I mean, I've seen lots of specialists dealing in all different avenues. So I see obviously a physiotherapist on a weekly basis. I see a biokineticist also on a weekly basis, 3 times a week. And
Yeah, Peter, could you tell us about the benefits that you found from like the biokineticist and the physiotherapist? What benefits have you found that they've each given you, and how they benefited you in each of their specialities?
So I started off with seeing a physiotherapist for the first 2 years when things were really bad. And my physiotherapist, I'm quite lucky, doesn't just deal in physiotherapy. She also does hydrotherapy and Pilates as well. So I started with that, and first off, we started in the water, because obviously you've got no gravity in the water, and it makes movement a lot easier. So we started off doing therapy in the water, just trying to connect neurological pathways with the muscles that weren't functioning correctly in my scapula and in my back, especially my core was also getting weak. So we started off doing that, and then on the side doing regular normal physiotherapy as well. As I progressed in the hydrotherapy, we went and started doing a bit of on-land based strength training with the Pilates, which was also extremely beneficial. And we found that slowly, as the neurological pathways were being rebuilt, I was able to control my scapula in a manner that I wasn't able to before. So they weren't just winging all the time. Um, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like they were working sort of all of a sudden and could work well. I got fatigued extremely quickly, and then I would start winging again. But slowly, like I say, we were building those neurological pathways, and just even if it was for a few minutes, getting the scapula to work in a manner that it wasn't previously working was extremely enlightening to me and motivating. So once things were going better after about 2 years, I was then my neurologist referred me to a sports physician by the name of Jeroen Swart, who works at the Sports Science Institute of South Africa, and he referred me to the head biokineticist for the neuro department, and I started working with him by the name of Avi Prasad. And we've been working together for the last 3 years, and I see him 3 times a week. We spend 1 to 2 sessions working on my shoulder rehab, and then the other sessions we work on the core and my legs, just trying to use like a holistic approach to it. After my first operation on the right shoulder, I was also then put in touch with a gentleman by the name of Jason Chin, who deals mainly in prosthetics, but he had a product that nobody else, to my knowledge, had heard of or had been introduced to, and I've got them over here. They're a set of braces that I've joined together by a German company by the name of Ottobock. So here's the and these braces, what they do is they've got sticky lining on the inside, and they grip on your bicep, and they pull the shoulder up and into with the use of these straps on the shoulder over here. They pull the arm into the socket to create stability. And what they also do is, because they are joined at the back here, they create stability for the shoulder blades as well. And they help the shoulder blades once.
Sorry, Peter. We can't hear you. Something. So we lost you. I think there. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you. And so we got you. I think the last time was where you had you were talking about the shoulder blades being stabilized.
Yes. So what happens is these braces, when my shoulders are fatiguing and they start popping out, the braces form as stability, and it just means that we can do more rehabilitation without the fatigue setting in and being a limiting factor. And that meant that I could do more and more rehab, and it drastically increased the rate at which I could maintain my muscle loss. And it really was an absolute game changer, the Ottobock braces, and like I say, I mean, it's obviously been years and years of rehabilitation. I mean, between Avi, my bio, and Emma, my physio, I see them about 6 times a week. So it's quite an intensive regime that I've put up for myself. But also, I mean, when I first went to my neurologist, I couldn't walk properly. I couldn't sit for very long. I was in pain quite a lot of the time, and I was told that by the time I was 35, I'd probably be in a wheelchair. And to me, that just was a prognosis that I could not accept. So me and my family have done everything that we can to try find any solution to improve my quality of life, even if it is just by 1%. And a big part of that is also your mental health. So it's not only your physical well-being, but I've been seeing psychologists and psychiatrists for a long time as well, just trying to help wrap my head around this disease and the reality that it implicates for the rest of my life. As we all know, this isn't necessarily, well, hopefully with this medication, I mean, it's very promising, but previously it's just been something that we have to accept that we will decline as we go on, and to try and prevent that from happening, or to maintain what you've got for as long as possible, has been the goal.
Absolutely, Peter. And yeah, sure. That was going to be my next question. So thank you for answering that about the mental resilience. And what would you say, what percentage of your life do you spend, well, of your week now, what do you do to keep yourself mentally resilient and emotionally with it, so that you don't, because you're doing so much on your physical side, so you're seeing your psychologist and your psychiatrist, and so what practices do you find that you are needing to do kind of on a daily basis in order to help yourself maintain this resilience that you're building up?
So I see my psychologist pretty frequently, and my psychiatrist. Currently seeing my psychiatrist every other week, just to keep base and keep in touch. But a big thing is meditation, is being present. I think those are two things that are crucial. And another thing is that I've noticed is when I'm mentally not feeling very good and I'm in a bad space mentally, my physical pain is a lot worse. When I am mentally feeling pretty good about things and quite positive, I am able to not necessarily ignore my pain, but it isn't at the forefront of my brain. It is not controlling everything in my life. And that is something that is very important. At the beginning, when I first was diagnosed with FSHD, and when I was even before that trying to figure out what was going on, I was seeing my psychologist 2 times a week, seeing my psychiatrist every week as well. And that was a massive part of building this resilience. So now that I have come quite a lot further, I don't see them as frequently, but it is something that is always on my mind. And if I am taking a couple steps back mentally and I am struggling, I will then see them more frequently in order to manage everything. I think that our mental state affects our physical well-being very much, and if you aren't
Absolutely.
on top of your mental well-being, it can completely disrupt what you're trying to do physically. It has to be a holistic
Mm.
approach that you take to FSHD, I believe. It can't just be all about the physical. It has to be about your mental strength and your mental well-being as well.
Absolutely. And Peter, a question I hadn't asked you before either, and it might seem irrelevant, but I think it could be relevant, is what job were you doing before your diagnosis and before your active, you know, moving forward with regards to dealing with your FSHD? What job were you doing?
So I worked for a manufacturing company in Gauteng, and I was based in quality control. So we made big steel pipelines that fed water from dams to cities. So um, that that was my job. I started off as a welder, and then worked my way up into quality control inspection, and then into a supervisory role. Um, but
Wow.
what happened to me was we had a rough part in at work, and we had to lay off, unfortunately, quite a lot of people, and I had to go from being more of a supervisory personnel to starting inspection again. And I was having to crawl through these pipes, and I just simply could not do it. The pain,
Yeah.
the pain was so excruciating. I'd lost so much function in my shoulders to pull myself through and to hold myself up.
Mm.
It literally became impossible. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I looked it up the other day. It's now been about just over 4 years since I've worked, and I'm
Wow.
now at a place where I am looking to get back into work and trying to find work again. But it has been a long 4-year road of just trying to get a grasp on how to manage FSHD best for myself.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks for sharing that too. And so, Peter, with now you moving forward and being in such a good mental state as well, what you're cycling quite a bit, and you tell us a little bit about how you got into the cycling and what you've done with now trying to raise funds and what you're raising funds for, but also how you've adapted your bicycle, etc.
So ultimately it was out of a need of necessity. I couldn't do too much. I was struggling to do things. When I was younger, like I said, so I was drawn to the water when I was a youngster, trying to get away from gravity, and I was a big swimmer. But at the beginning, before my operation, my range of motion was so limited um, due to not only my weakness but due to my calcific tendonitis. I simply couldn't swim anymore, and I was just trying to find any way in which I could do a sport that had low impact. It was also for my mental well-being, not only my physical well-being, but I know sport is such a big part of your mental well-being, or being active, should I say, not necessarily sport. So I got drawn to cycling, but I struggled a lot at the beginning, especially with my instability in my shoulders. So I could only ride maybe maximum a kilometer. Then what I did was I went to, also at Sports Science Institute of South Africa, I went for what is commonly known as a bike fitting, and they adapted my bike to my disability. They raised the handlebars, brought it nearer towards me, so I am more upright than the regular rider. But at the end of the day, it was just about going out and having the wind blow through my hair, um, and yeah, that was just so mentally freeing for me after struggling to walk, not being able to sit much, definitely not being able to run, to be able to even just go up and down the street on my bike for 5 minutes was absolutely freeing. It freed me so much, and it made my spirit, my soul, my mind so happy that it was something that I decided to pursue with everything that I've got. And it took a lot of learning. So I would sometimes overdo it, and then I would pay the price, and I would be extremely sore for a week or two afterwards. And I'd have these ebbs and flows where I was feeling okay, so I'd do a bit more, feeling okay, do a bit more, and then I'd go down because I'd overdone it, and then I'd sort of wait and take a rest period and then go back at it, and then it's been about 2.5 years since I started cycling. And
Wow.
last year, about 5 months ago, I was given a late entry to what we all know as the Cape Town Cycle Tour, and I thought there's no way I can actually do this. Even after I had the entry ticket, I didn't think I could complete it. It's a 110-kilometer race, and I mean the furthest I'd ridden my bike was 70 kilometers, and I paid the price for it. Um, and I really didn't think I could do it, but I got on the start line and I gave it my all, and I did it in a decent time, and that just the bug bit completely, and I was just like, hey, I can actually be somewhat competitive on this. My legs aren't affected by FSHD, so I can make them stronger, and I can train, or I have been training my upper body to get the maximal use out of every little bit that I've got still. And I've done a few other races since then, and this year I've been seeded in 1A, which is literally the first of the general population group to go after the pro elite riders. So
Wow.
I'm absolutely so proud of myself for what I've been able to accomplish. And in doing that this year, been talking with my family, and we were like, well, let's raise funds, right? Let's do fundraising. Let's get involved in the
Absolutely.
FSHD community and see what we can do. So we reached out to Muscular Dystrophy Foundation, and we decided to raise funds for genetic testing kits. So the the aim is to help people who and families that don't necessarily have the ability that my family had, and aren't as privileged and can't maybe necessarily afford to do genetic testing for themselves. So yeah, the aim was to raise 10,000 rand, and so far we're just over 16,000. So I'm absolutely blown away by the support of everybody out there, and I really just hope that this can help other families get a final conclusive diagnosis, because we all know it's all good and well to be told that they think you might have this or think you might have that, but to actually get proof to say this is exactly what is going on, this is what's happening to you, it's extremely important, especially for your mental well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Peter, I really agree with you there. When you know that what you've got, it helps to deal with it better. So how would you say that has helped you as well when you went for the genetic counseling and genetic testing, and you found out that you had a form of FSHD, even though they know that you don't have FSHD 1 or 2, the mere fact that they could diagnose you with something, what did that do for you as a person?
Well, it completely changed everything, because we were no longer playing a guessing game. It had taken 2 years of being prodded and poked like a pincushion, doing every test under the sun, trying to figure out what was actually going on with you, to now have it being narrowed down to such a small scope to say, look, we know you're in this ballpark. To me, it changed absolutely everything. It changed everything for me, but it also changed everything for my family. My family has gone through this journey with me, and it's extremely difficult for them to see a slow decline in your well-being and not understand what is going on. So yeah, it really changed everything, and it also changed everything for my rehabilitation. We now know my biokineticist, my physio, my other doctors, they could now do research and try and figure out how best to help me and how best to preserve what I still had left. And we're under no illusion that we're not going to sort of create muscle mass in certain areas, and that's okay. But like I say, to create neurological pathways that are firing, to try and get what little bit is left to work as to the best of its ability, is key. And then afterwards, I mean, after my surgery as well, my range of motion improved in my arm, and I could start doing not exactly what I would look back and sort of say was good technique, but I could start swimming a little bit, which was also like absolutely incredible to me. That was really good. And then there were other options put on the table, sort of, you know, my surgeon, Professor Stephen Roche, said, look, like, now we know it's FSHD, there's certain operations we could do. I don't necessarily recommend that we do them, but you have these options. So like scapular fusion. So that was an option that was given to me. He said sort of like, this is a success rate. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea, but you've got options on the table. And we thankfully have said no, like, I'd rather not go down that path. It's good to know that it is there if one day I do need to have that operation. But for now, I'd rather be as minimally invasive as possible.
Absolutely. And then now with you raising this wonderful amount of money and being brave and actually going and cycling for this cause, Peter, what do you, are you going to give that money then to the genetic counselor, or how are you going to reach the people? Is it going to be through the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation and organization here in South Africa? Or how's that money going to get to the relative people that need the genetic testing?
So that money is going to the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation of South Africa. And the way it works, they've got genetic testing lab in the United States that have agreed to do the genetic testing for free. So all anybody needs to do is get in touch with Muscular Dystrophy Foundation South Africa. They will send the genetic testing kits to you. You do the swab, and I believe all you would need to do is pay for the couriering cost to send it over to the States, and that is it. So a big drive on my social media has been for people, if and also last week I did a talk on a radio station, and just sort of saying, like, if you have been diagnosed with FSHD and you haven't had your genetic testing confirm it, you just need to get in touch with Muscular Dystrophy Foundation South Africa, and they will send the genetic testing kits to you, and you have to pay the couriering costs, which aren't that much, and you can get a confirmation of your diagnosis.
Excellent. Thank you for
Estelle,
that. Yes.
may I let me just put on this video. I'm in my PJs though, just so you can see me. I think you will see me. I don't know. It's quite dark in here.
A little bit.
I actually want to thank Peter, because now I'm realizing that it's actually through him. My mom is also on the chat group, Anna Marie. She also, you'll know her quite well through the Cape Town Foundation. She helps there quite a lot. I'm in Hermanus, but it's actually, I think, through Peter's foundation then that we actually got our confirmation last year, November. We also only paid for the courier fees, and we were so surprised that so little people actually applied to do this, because I think it was only me and my mom at that stage that sent it through. But the doctor or the professor that did the diagnosis, he even went above and beyond. We wrote actually in the magazine that came out in January, we did an article with the foundation where we explain to people that it's actually so beneficial to do it, because since then I've actually started. I'm also a year older. I'm 33 years old, and I've been diagnosed 9 years ago, and my mom was 30, so she was done about 33 years ago. So for us to get the confirmation, yes, you have FSHD1, was quite a difference in the way we live and the way we treat and the way we look at the perspective of how we are dealing with our normal lives. It's absolutely been a life changer. So the doctor actually, or the professor from Nevada, Peter, he also actually sat with us, he Skyped with us, and he explained the test, what was done and how you live and do this, do that. He gives, still today, he wrote reports for me and everything. So till today, you can email him, he can give you advice, so much more than, it's like Peter says, there's so many of us that cannot afford to go to big neurologists, and my neurology was also done through the doctors at Tygerberg, or my diagnosis. So, but they picked it up quite quickly because of my mom that also has the condition. So I just want to thank you, Peter. I mean, if it wasn't for this and the foundation, we never would have actually had the full confirmation of, okay, this is what we have. And I can proudly say that I go for physio every 3 weeks, so I can relate with the pain. I actually started with hydrotherapy today. So my first session was today. So it's a step forward. So I actually wanted to ask you, Peter, that you're saying that you went for hydrotherapy and all of those things. Has that helped your pain in any way? Because pain is one thing I struggle with a lot. So the physio helps me to go every 3 weeks. It gives me that little bit of push that I need to maintain that quality of life. And I think the hydrotherapy will also have a big improvement. But how is your pain levels and stuff with all the, because I think one of my worst fears is doing too much and then worsening the condition at a quicker pace.
Yes, so I found that I'm so happy for your story. That thanks for sharing. Um, I found that hydrotherapy helped me immensely. It really did. Not only just the physical rehab, but the hydrostatic pressure of being in the water helps reduce pain and inflammation, I found. And to me, it was an absolute game changer. I could, because of the lack of gravity and the buoyancy in the water, I could increase my range of motion and my movement, and that, like, in turn, like I said, increased the neurological pathways to the muscles that I still had, and it drastically improved things for my health. um, like I say, we all are, even though we've all got the same condition, we are still different. So for me, it took a while for me to find my boundaries, to find how hard, how far I could push before it would bite me back. And that I could only do through years of experimenting, I guess, is for lack of a better word. Um, and and Yeah, like I say, I found it
Yeah.
extremely beneficial, and I hope you do too. I hope it really helps things for you going forward. And it did definitely help decrease my pain. Um, but I think inevitably we are all going to suffer no matter what. We've just got to try and reduce that as much as we can.
Madeleine, if I can add, thank you for that, Peter. Madeleine, where I found that also that the hydrotherapy has helped. I saw a hydrotherapist and she gave me a program that, so I did 2 sessions with her, and then now when I do the hydrotherapy, the exercises, it's my happy place, because that's the only place in the water that I don't feel the pain. So I use a noodle a lot as well to put under my shoulder, under my armpits, and then to just do the movements up and down in the water to stretch the back muscles, to kick to keep the leg muscles strong. But the fact that the arms have got support through the noodle, it's a happy place where you can just float, you can kick, you don't have to do too much to keep the rest of your body exercised and to keep those muscles moving. You don't feel the upper body pain. So it's a good place. But using that noodle and perhaps having a hydrotherapy instructress to perhaps give you a little program might work if you're not doing so already. And then I spend at least three sessions a week. I do my own program in the pool, and I try and limit myself to half an hour, because it's such a happy place that I want to kick for a long time, and I want to do, try and do more. But then there is that fatiguing, and then that's where the physiotherapist helps, because she tells me when I've done too much, or she knows where I am fatigued. She'll ask me questions and say, well, have you been doing, how long were you in the pool, what exercises did you do? So it's definitely a good thing, that hydrotherapy, it's the happy place in the pool.
What's nice is I started with this physio today. My other physio actually went overseas, and she suggested this lady. And when I started there, I couldn't believe it. I've been living in Hermanus for 10 years, and I didn't know they had a pool. And what's nice is you book the pool, so the pool is yours for a full hour, you and you alone, and you can do whatever you want in that thing. So she actually sat
wow.
with me with my first session today, and she gave me exercises for strengthening, helping the shoulder blades, as well as what do you call it? Just to keep your stability, if I can call it that.
Yeah.
But she said my posture is quite good still. Like Peter, my legs are quite strong. But because of the progression going so quickly, the professor in Nevada says that is mainly why we experience so much pain then. It's when your weakening takes place very quickly. But now I felt so good after the session today. I went in my lunchtime and I still joked around and I was like, yeah, you're all working and I'm swimming. But like not even an hour after, I lifted myself at my chair at work and I hurt my shoulder so badly that it's in a sling tonight. So my husband had to cook tonight, but I know it'll get better soon. So we'll just push through that. But luckily, I've got physio again on Monday. But I've luckily had the privilege, like a lot of people are, when they're struggling and stuff. I mean, it's a hard time for many of us. So what I did, I just spoke openly to the physio. I told her, listen, yeah, I can't put this on medical aid. I'm going to be depleted within a few months. So I told her, this is something I have to do cash. And she's actually been so sweet about the whole thing. She gave me a discount because this is a lifelong progression or a lifelong situation. It's not, I'm going to come for 3 sessions and then leave.
Yeah.
So they've actually helped me on the financial side. She gave me a huge discount that I pay for my physio. She can do needling. We can do, like I say, I can do the swimming sessions. So, but I mean, when Peter talks, I WhatsApp my mom now and I told her I can totally relate to this guy with all his symptoms. So it's actually nice to hear other people out there with the same struggles, because I think many people, if you don't go through this, even our family, they don't really always understand what we go through. So it's definitely, I agree, mentally and physically and just everything all in one. So kudos to you. Well done. But
Thanks,
yeah, we
Madeleine.
will all get there and do our own little mission.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Peter? Thank you for that,
Yeah,
Madeleine.
thank you so much.
Yeah, I see we've only got about 10 minutes left. So does anyone else have any questions for Peter? Or
Hi, Christelle. Not really a question. It's Gerda. I just wanted to thank Peter from MDF side for what he's doing. We are so proud of him, and we'll hold times for him on Sunday when he does his race. And then just a small clarification. The test kits, MDF sends that out on their cost. The only cost to the person is to send it back to us, not to send it overseas, because that is expensive. So they just need to send it back to us. And if they use Pick and Pay, it's about $100. It's not a lot of money. And then we will send it off to America. So if you know of anyone that still needs to do genetic testing, please get them to contact me. But we continuously send out invitations to our members for them to do the genetic testing. Okay.
thank you,
Gerda,
Gerda.
thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Gerda, I was going to say, if you can email me with kind of a short description of the program, we can also email it out to all of our South African contacts. So there might be some people.
That would be wonderful. Thanks, June.
Yeah.
Peter, June also wanted to ask you something that you put on the chat, but June can ask now too, which is quite relevant.
Okay. Well, really, you mentioned so many professionals, therapists who helped you, and I'm sure everybody on this call probably would like to know who they are and how to contact them, because there just aren't enough around. I mean, that's a big struggle that many people have, is somebody who understands and is willing to work with your situation to develop approaches that help. So maybe after, if you can just write up whoever you'd like to, whose information you'd like to share, send it to Christelle So she'll have it because she's become kind of the linchpin for information on FSHD. Might be time to think about setting up a little simple web page or something, a resource for the South African community. But I would certainly love to have that handy as well, because I get inquiries from all over.
Definitely, I will definitely put a list together and share it. All of the professionals I've seen would be more than happy. They would absolutely love to help everybody that they can. Even if your physio or biokineticist would like to get in touch with mine, just to share notes as well, how to help treat. I know that Jason Chin, who organizes the braces for me, he could send them across the country as well to anybody in the country. And I'd be more than willing and happy to share everybody's details. That wouldn't make me that would make me very happy, just to try help anybody else out there.
Yeah. Also, very specifically, that brace that you described for your arm, I think that would be worth a blog post if you want to write up what exactly what's going on, and maybe some photos. And because I'd never heard that, and I think there's so much more attention to braces for the lower limbs and very little on arm, upper bodies, and
yes,
that I'm sure many people love to know about that.
I'll definitely do that. And I have also recently just started a YouTube channel, trying to document my journey about FSHD, and I do plan on doing quite an intensive deep dive into the braces. I do know that they were originally created for people who have had strokes, who have problems with subluxation of their arms, and that is how Jason came across the braces. And he just thought, look, like, let's see if it can help you, and they've been a game changer.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks for that, Peter. I see here we've got a question from Ruan, and he says that he was diagnosed 9 years ago through a muscle biopsy. And why is genetic testing important? He said he knows he sounds a bit ignorant, but he's unsure as to what the difference in diagnosis would be. So June or Gerda, would you like to answer that? Perhaps if you know.
Sure, I'd be happy to jump in on that, and then I have to rush off. But
shame.
So as I mentioned very early in this presentation, at the beginning, there are more than 40 types of muscular dystrophies, and they all have a genetic origin, and they cause muscle weakness by different mechanisms biologically. And so the prognosis is different for each of them. The treatment could be different from each of them. So having that genetic specificity is quite important. It affects all kinds of healthcare decisions. Some muscular dystrophies, vigorous exercise could damage the muscle. That's not the case for FSHD, but you'd want to know that you had FSHD before you undertook an exercise program. The therapies that are being developed are targeting the genetic mechanism of the disease, so they wouldn't work on a different type of muscular dystrophy. So again, you need that genetic confirmation. They have different inheritance patterns. So FSHD is what's called autosomal dominant. So if you have it, you have a 50% chance of passing it on to your children. You also, if you have parents that sometimes it's known with FSHD that the symptoms can be almost unnoticeable. So you might think your parents don't have it, and about 30% of FSHD cases are what are called new mutations. So they really are not inherited, but it could be inherited from a parent 70% of the time. And then your siblings might also have a risk of having FSHD. And it's good to know because, again, like there's so many weird symptoms that somebody might think that was because of a sports injury or something else, and it would not be treated correctly if you didn't diagnose it properly. So those are some of the reasons. And again, the hereditary issue would come into play. If you're thinking of starting a family, you might want to talk to a genetic counselor about what that means and what, family planning options you might want to consider. So those are just maybe some of the top reasons why having that genetic confirmation can really have an important. And then I think, Peter, you were so eloquent in just the psychological impact of knowing, just knowing where you are. So
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I'm going to have to say goodbye, but you can, I think the call should continue without me. And
thank you, June. And yeah, I'll be in touch and send those details on to you when Peter sends them by